Independent yet all the same. Left the labels but still following the rules, doing it their way. Hey,
For what?
we find ourselves in each other's way, when all we gotta do is find a lane that's our own. Cause there's enough creativity, hey, hey. Cause I come from a dope name. I say I come from a dope name. I say we come from a dope name. I say we come from a dope name.
It's a different world with creatives on campus where we explore all things creatives, campus culture, and community. I am your host, Brittany T, and I am so excited today to be here speaking with our guest, Miss Tina Fears, who is the founder of Stage Ready LLC and the creator of the Fearless Movement, which she's going to tell us all about. Tina, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm definitely here for a different world. I got my buttons and all my merch at the Create Conference. So I'm excited to be on with you guys this morning.
Yes, yes. So let's just talk a little bit about that. We met at the Create Conference down in Atlanta, which was absolutely amazing. Um, and I just want, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, you can, just introduce yourself a little bit, tell our listeners, a little bit about yourself, your businesses, and just whatever you want to share.
Yeah, absolutely. From Tina Fears, I created Stage Ready LLC, which is a full service creative direction, production, casting, one-stop shop where people are able to source us for their creative needs. We are bi-coastal, so we are located in Atlanta, but we definitely work coast to coast based on, our clients' needs. And we recently just finished producing the World Natural Hair and Healthy Lifestyle event in Atlanta this past weekend, which is the largest event of its kind in the Southeast. So Stage Ready, that is our project. That is one of our larger clients, and we are blessed to be able to subcontract people from our team to facilitate in different capacities with that event. We also do, some things obviously in the faith-based community, as far as providing performance assistance for like the Dove Awards and Celebration of Gospel and,
Nice.
different leads like that. Because I have a background as a legit artist, creative, singer, dancer, actor. And so what I consider myself to be is the show in the business. So we're able to, offer those services in the visual performing arts space, but then we're also able to do it on the corporate side as well by producing and planning out a lot of these big beauty events and our artistic events that we see around the country.
Wow, that is awesome. And you just mentioned it briefly, but you said you're also an artist yourself. Tell us a little bit about that, like what creatively you do even outside of the agency portion of your business, or what you have done previously.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I'm a triple threat, and that's the singer, dancer, actor. So as long as I can remember, I've always been singing and dancing and tumbling and doing improv and all of that good stuff. So that really makes up who I am. If you transition into maybe the past 10 to 15 years, I've been really blessed to thrive in the musical theater community. I'm a member of Actors Equity. And so I've been able to do, musical theater here in Atlanta, and also been blessed to do some commercials for like Walmart and Ford and Shoe Carnival and just some different avenues, some, popular brands that people know. So the cool thing is, I never wanted to be a starving artist. And I tapped into the space of multiple streams of income very early, as a early to late teen, early 20s. So it's been cool to be able to kind of balance being able to feed the creative Tina, the creative person, the performer, the artist, the singer, the dancer, whatever. And then also be able to create a comfortable lifestyle by using my business savvy to service those same peers just on the flip side of the coin.
Wow. And the whole business savvy thing, tell us about that. Is that something that you studied in college? Did you go to college, or was that something you just really was imparted to you some other way?
Okay. Yeah, I went to Clark Atlanta University, go Panthers,
Okay.
for probably about 2.5 years. And unfortunately, I ran out of money. There were some things going on in my personal life and with my family, and going to a historically Black college and all that comes along with that was just something that my family could not afford. And so for me, having big dreams and wanting to pursue a traditional route, there's just this fighter in Tina that I've always had. And I was not going to allow myself I wasn't going to allow lack to keep me from pursuing my goals or operating at my fullest potential. And so that's around the time that I started Stage Ready. It was literally, sink or swim mode. It's like, okay, sis, this college thing, especially at Clark Atlanta, as expensive as our private institutions are, it didn't make sense for that to happen for me. And so I used that grind, the girl behind the hustle. And I started my business. I had $100 in a dream. When I was in college, I think I was pursuing education, but it's amazing how God orchestrates things because, being an artist and coming from a creative family, I talked about not wanting to be a starving artist. So I almost had this fear of just going to like Howard and going to like a performing arts, something that was going to be solely based on the arts. I always felt like I needed to have something structured, something that I could rely on, something that was going to be a guaranteed check. But look how God turned that situation around.
Absolutely.
Okay, school didn't work out for me, and I was forced to double back to the God-given gift that he had given me. And so the business savvy, I've always been somebody that's very organized, very analytical and structured and all that good stuff. So I don't have the academia to support that. I have the real life, receipts to back all of that good stuff up. So with $100 in a dream, I got an LLC. And I just, started really volunteering my services as, a creative director or, organizing castings and offering my assistance to different producers with their music videos. And, as time went on, me being the performer, I knew how to get that dope shot. I knew how to tell, casting, no, you don't need to get that girl because she's not going to read well on camera. Because remember, I'm usually that person trying to read well on camera. So I was able to couple those together and snowballing, many years later into having some really substantial clients, under my belt. So if you talk about the business piece, some people just naturally have a knack for business and understanding marketing and the culture. And I just believe that coupled with my God-given gifts as a creative, it just kind of ended up being like this dynamic combination of what you see when you see Tina Fears, out here producing these shows and producing these events today.
Wow. I love that. And I think what I'm hearing you saying and what I even think of while you're speaking is, at the conference we both attended, I had the opportunity to just speak briefly with stylist Jay Bowen and Bolin, and he was talking. I asked him the very thing I'm talking to you about. We were talking about like these college students who feel almost like they have to wait till they get the degree in order to feel legitimate to be able to act on whatever it is they're seeking to do. Or if someone like similar to your own journey gets to a fork in the road where college, for whatever reason, financially or otherwise, isn't paving out, they might go into this depression or funk, or even like the college athlete who doesn't make it to the NFL, they go into this.
Right.
There's so much research that talks about these types of students who go into these depressive states. And there's just something about the creative who's able to channel all of those obstacles into something that propels them forward. So I love just hearing you speak to that, because I think it's so important for people to know, like, even if that lane or whatever that lane is, it doesn't work out, that there's still, to channel that and to change, take that energy and flip it and use it to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. It's ironic you say that, because my husband played college basketball, and anyone who, specifically when you talk about the athlete, I mean, that's something that, and especially if you're a scholarship, he was a scholarship Division I basketball player, that is 10, 15 years of preparation to get to that space, and so let's not even talk about, trying to go to the NBA. What about when you get the scholarship and then you get on the team and then you're not playing, so you prepared your whole, high school, middle school camps and all of that to get to college, to play ball, to start, and then they're not starting you, and so that space of like depression and not being validated, or thinking you put all this work and time and energy into this is my moment, and it doesn't happen. For me, my faith, my like relentless, tireless belief that God had something greater in store, regardless of how my situation wasn't shaping out the way I thought it would, is the only way that I was able to find the energy and the confidence to even pursue, another option. Now, for me, again, because there were so many things financially and emotionally happening in my family dynamic, I didn't have an option. My mom would say it all the time, failure is not an option, and so that's something I want to encourage these creatives that are listening to this podcast. Like, failure is never going to be an option. And so even though we are faced with different obstacles, it's going to be up to us to figure out how we can shift the narrative, change that narrative, change that conversation into something where we're being fulfilled and we're really able to, perform to our best with the things that we're really passionate about. I think you and I were talking briefly, sometimes we go to school, and then I know so many of my peers now that are thriving as professionals, but if you look back at them about 5 to 7 years ago, they were sitting at their parents' houses, twiddling their thumbs, trying to figure out what they're going to do. They have these degrees, they have these student loans, Sally Mae is calling up their phone, and they're miserable because when they were in that, while they were matriculating at these fabulous schools, they really had no idea what they were really passionate about and what they wanted to do. So I love that you guys are giving people, a safe space to kind of explore, like, what are you really passionate about? Like, what's that thing that you're getting up every single morning and that is what's on your heart? Not that class that you're going to and writing papers for. But if we can start identifying earlier on what really makes us tick and what really gives us joy, then I think we can get a jump start on kind of creating these pathways to success if we can identify a little bit earlier what really brings us joy and what we're really great at.
Yes, and that is just a perfect segue to talk to you about starting earlier and how, you're even raising a son with who is a creative and who already has a business and who was featured and launching, maybe not launching, but really just highlighting those to the creative kids that were at this Create conference. Talk to just me a little bit about your son and his business and just how that is raising a child entrepreneur who's a creative in that way.
Yeah, so my son, Micah Sears, he's 8 years old now, and he has his own company, Oh My Slime Co. And slime is something that's really popular with kids. STEM education is something that we're constantly seeing being pushed to the forefront in the educational system. And so Micah came to my husband and I, and he wanted to make slime. And so as small as it may seem, one thing I can give my parents credit for was acknowledging that there was a gift very early on.
Wow.
And so a lot of times parents, your kids start drawing and coloring and singing, girl, sit down, girl, why you this, is that, and the other. But what we do without knowing is we end up suppressing things that could ultimately be them identifying what their gift is.
That is so
and identifying
good.
what they're passionate about. So we suppress it because, can we really talk, like, generationally, African American people, our structure of how we're parented and what the family structure and home life looks like is very much identifying respect, do what you're told. Absolutely. This is how you do this. This is when you do that. I don't want to hear that, and there's kudos to all of that because we're very different. The respect level is very different in our culture than it is in a lot of others. But as things and times evolve, as parents, we have to do our due diligence to cultivate, when our kids express interest in things. And it's not always a basketball, a baseball, a microphone and a dance, And so for us, Micah is very bright. He started reading when he was about 2 or 3 years old. So we already knew very early on that he was unique. You know what I'm saying? So when he said, hey, I want to make slime, we started doing this research, and he begged us, please. We were on vacation in Destin. And so we made slime, and we started researching and seeing there are not a lot of kids who look like him that are doing this. And so if you research the slime culture or just the YouTube culture for kids anyway, people are making billions of dollars on social media. So we didn't come up in that culture of, the influencer wave and all of that. So we're bringing him up in a space that's totally different. So me and my husband, obviously being African-American people, wanting to create a space for our son to thrive, he asked me, like, can I sell my slime, mommy? Like, can we make more and all of this? So we went through the process just like any of these other businesses before they launch a product or a food item. I mean, it took us months to perfect his formula. But he was very instrumental. Everything that you see, from his logo to his t-shirt design, to the flavors of his slimes, to how the packaging, all of that, he was instrumental in doing that, because mommy has enough businesses. Daddy has enough stuff that he's doing. So if we're going to do this, this had to be something that he was ultimately passionate about. And so to speak to your question about parenting, parenting a creative, I think just giving your kids a space to express themselves, and identifying what they're passionate about, and really rolling it out the right way. And so the blessing to Micah is, mommy had already, kind of crossed those launching a business sands. So I had already been through what all of that looked like. And so obviously I'm able to kind of assist him in, marketing and figuring out what would be the best way to do it. But a lot of what we're doing is trial and error, and we're seeing how kids and their parents are receiving his slime business and the slime tour. And the blessing is that it's his business, so he can stand up there and talk about why he created his slime, which was really just to give kids an alternative to screen time, and to kind of get off the tablets for a moment and be creative and, make things and work with different textures and all of that good stuff. So yeah, we're a full force, creative house over here. And it's manifesting itself in different ways. Mine is in the performing arts. His is in the STEM, mathematics, and science area. And then the cool thing is my husband is an educator. So we're not just, we're not freelancing over here. We're making sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's from an educational standpoint, so that everything that Oh My Slime is doing is just kind of legit across the board.
That's mind blowing to think of, just all of the creativity flowing in that household. That is so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you hit on so much good stuff, specifically thinking about, just the culture and the history of the Black community and entrepreneurship. And, what can you even say to someone, maybe like a parent who has children, or has a child who they do see giftings in, but just doesn't have that background or that business savviness, or even know what the first step might be in really helping that child to cultivate those gifts, or to turn it into a business? What's the first step for someone like that?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the first step really, for a parent who has a child that has a passion for creating something or launching something, is really doing it and scaling it down, like scaling it. And what I mean by scale is, I wouldn't say go take out a loan because your baby says like, hey, I want to make lollipops, and I want to come up with these flavors for lollipops, and this is what I want to look like. I would start small. And that's ultimately what we did. Okay, we're going to start small. We're going to take $150 and we're going to make you some lollipops, baby. You're going to come up with the colors. We're going to identify your logo, and let's just sell them to friends and family and see what happens. Because it's one thing to have the idea, but it's another thing to start birthing that idea, and you start discovering, oh, I need labels. Oh, how do I keep my lollipops from melting when we ship them to people? Okay, well, how much do we charge for them? Okay, you got to factor how much it costs to ship it and make sure we're going to make a profit off of it. So I would always say, really just start small. I think start small, and then also making sure that your child is not going to be, I'm on this today and off that tomorrow. So it's really, when you talk about kids being into entrepreneurship, it really has to be something that your child is passionate about. Before parents, we start investing time and energy that we can't get back. And then they say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go play soccer, So that would be the first thing. And then the other thing is just giving yourself grace, and say, hey, we're going to try this together. And that's one thing we say with Micah. If Micah decides tomorrow, hey, I'm tired of flying, then we'll say, hey, it was a good ride, and we go on to the next thing, because they are just kids. So start small and just keep in mind they're kids, and kids may be on it forever, and then they may decide I'm tired of it and go on to the next thing. But you can at least say you guys were able to kind of experience that journey together.
No, that's great advice. I think about my own journey just as a kid, like, thinking that I wanted to play the piano because I could sing well. And so I'm like, oh, this is the next thing. I have these I'm very tall. I have these long fingers wanting to play the piano. And I realized that it wasn't easy. It was actually something I had to
Mm-hmm.
practice and be diligent with. And, and I wasn't at that age, I just didn't care enough to want to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I left and then I was playing basketball and I played soccer and I did this and I did that. And my parents really gave me that wiggle room to kind of find my way. So
Yeah.
I love you saying even that part of just, letting kids be kids to an extent, and not really creating this forced environment because
Yeah.
we all know creativity doesn't really flow that well when it's just being so regulated and
Mm-hmm.
just the force to keep it doing it. So I love that, and I love the practicality of what you're saying. Just switching gears, I really wanted to get your feedback on the Create conference, the Create 19 experience. I attend a lot of conferences and events, and I just thought it was such a phenomenal experience. And I know you were engaged in a way where you were out in the front and really engaging. So I don't know if you had a chance to really go into all of the different speaking opportunities, but what was just your overall feedback on that experience?
Yeah, the Create conference, Create 19 was absolutely phenomenal. I experienced it from the perspective of a vendor, but then I also experienced it almost in a capacity like an attendee. And many of my peers or people that I've observed in the industry were speakers at the event. And it was like almost like a homecoming in a sense, because these are people who a lot of times we see them on social media and we encounter them at the different events and activities, but they really did a phenomenal job of making sure the movers and shakers who are really impacting and influencing the community were in the room. And I think that was absolutely phenomenal. The format for the conference was like nothing I've ever seen before. And it was great because I think they really did an awesome job of just tapping into what creativity and faith-based creativity looks like right now. I can remember one of my peers kind of stopped by and I said, now, have you seen a church conference like this, where it was just now. It felt like right now. It felt like how people operate right now. It was casual and, it had a vibe to it that just had a sense of community, and it was inviting and it was relevant. And I think it was a place where, correct me if I'm wrong, but people were inspired to go and create and be even better in their various spaces. So I think they did a phenomenal job with that. Everything from just like the courtyard area in the food trucks to just the free flowing space, and just how each night culminated with these fantastic unique worship experiences. There was just something really organic about everything that was happening there. And that's kudos to the leadership there, because they took the time to pay attention to all the details. And though you have people coming from different places and spaces, ultimately it felt like a place where creatives gathered. And I think that was what their goal was. So I thought the Create conference was absolutely phenomenal. We were honored to be, a partnership sponsor for Create Kids, which was new. And I think now that we see how successful that was, I think it'll be something that'll be even better, because parents were able to bring their kids and be able to focus on worship and not, I got to hurry up and get home to a babysitter, because they had all of that stuff provided for them. And there was programming designed for the young people. So they did a phenomenal job. They set the standard really high, and we were just honored to be a part of it.
Absolutely. I agree with everything. The leadership, it speaks so much to the people who were involved to put something like that together. Even when you walk in the door, like the level of hospitality, I just thought was really phenomenal. So I'm excited. I'm hoping this year that we can bring some of our student creatives and really just come down to Atlanta and be a part of that whole creative movement that I say is happening there. That we're really trying to get more of over here where I'm at in the New Jersey and Philadelphia area. So thank you so much for sharing. Before we let you go, I just want to ask you really briefly, like, what inspires you? What gets that creative juice going for you to create?
I am inspired by what's happening around me. I'm very much someone that's compassionate, and maybe compassion is not the right word. I'm passionate about serving and helping others. So when I see a need, that inspires me to create things. So when I started Stage Ready, I was inspired because I saw that there was a void in how the faith-based community was being perceived by the mainstream market. So my whole goal was to present music videos, live performances that were equivalent, if not better, than what we were seeing on MTV and BET. So a lot of the artists like the Dietrich Haddons and the Mary Marys and the Ty Tribbett's and all of these different people who, maybe 10 years ago were the first ones that were kind of considered radical in having these fly looks and having these dancers and choreography and all of that. That stuff wasn't happening prior to. So if you want to talk about what inspires me to create, I feel like I am inspired when I see that there's a need, and that's what charges me to create and develop something to meet a need. And I guess that would be more so from the business side. From the Tina Fears, the artistic side, I'm just inspired by whatever, I guess, again, whatever's happening around me. If there's great music being created, if there's beautiful artwork that I'm seeing, if there's like a vibe in the city that has this great space or a need for collaboration, then that's what inspires me. So I guess in giving my answer, I'm identifying that I'm very much a fixer, and I'm inspired to create when I feel like there's something that needs to be fixed or developed. That's what gets me going. And a lot of times collaboration is the vehicle that I use to create.
Absolutely. I love that. And the Fearless movement is something that you started, I guess, for that purpose of being able to give back to the creative community. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that movement is all about?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Fearless movement is something that's been kind of in the incubator process for several years. And we finally launched it in February. And the Fearless movement is really kind of the vehicle I'm using to share my testimony, how the space that I was in, when I had to leave Clark Atlanta, really choosing not to allow lack and dysfunction to be the end of my story. And so the Fearless movement is really what I'm using to serve that forgotten about group. So what happens when you get past like the Toys for Tots space, that 18 to, 16 to maybe 21, 22, where maybe there isn't a strong support system at home. Maybe the only money that they have is what they're using to pay for school and pay for tuition. That's the group that we're wanting to serve, because that was the group that I was in, so we're not like the little kids where, you can go and pick up toys and things and gifts, but then you're not the adult because you still need help. That's who the Fearless movement is looking to serve. And so that's everything from public speaking platforms, inspiration, providing supply bags with, feminine items and clothes and shoes and things like that. Just really that space where, if life kind of has you down and out, we want you to be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. And we don't want necessities to be the reason why you can't pursue that. Because there are so many people who have greatness inside of them, but because what's happening around them is so clouded and so dark, they can't even navigate to be their best self. And so that's what I'm here to just be a light to people and say, listen, I know what it's like to be borderline homeless. I know what it's like to, have to leave school cheering, doing great academically. And because finances don't allow you to pursue that, you're looking at a brick wall, so that's what the Fearless movement is about. And we're really excited we're believing God that we'll be able to take this conversation globally. But we want to start right here in our city and make sure that our resources are available to the young adults here.
Absolutely. I love that. That is 100% like something that, the creators on campus, lifestyle brand is really just looking to support businesses and movements like that, because I think to your point, there are so many in that age group. Once you become an adult, it's like assume that you will just go figure life out.
Yep.
And it doesn't happen that way. We're all constantly trying to navigate life. And there's so many people who I believe are discouraged and depressed and giving up on dreams that no one else can see or perceive outside of themselves. And And just to know that there are people and conferences like movements like the Fearless Movement that are really routing around the creative and trying to breathe hope back into them. I just, that makes me so excited. So thank you so much for just sharing everything and the nuggets you've dropped, the gems you've left us with. This has been such a great conversation. Can you just tell us where we can follow you, where we can learn more about Stage Ready LLC and the Fearless Movement, as well as Tina Fears, the artist?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. And it's just been a blessing to be able to share. And I want to wish you well with what you're doing, because there's definitely a need for all of that you're presenting. So thank you for having me. I can be reached on social media. All my social handles are the same. It's simply at Tina Fears. That's F as in Frank, EARS. And that's on Instagram, that's on Twitter, that's on Facebook. If anyone is looking to connect with me through maybe mentorship or just asking some questions about launching their business, I also always have internship opportunities with my company for like the events I just produced. You can connect at tinafears.com, and then the website is just tinafears.com. So if you Google Tina Fears, typically my picture will pop up, and then all of my information. They can slide through the DM. I always respond to those. But I definitely, am just honored to have been on your podcast and look forward to just serving, hopefully side by side in the future.
Of course, I really, really look forward to that. And again, thank you so much. We'll definitely be tuned in, seeing what you have coming up and supporting however and whenever we can. Thank you so much.